Is that okay? Can you see that properly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Good afternoon, judges. We are Gloss Logic. Today, we will be taking you through our solution to Revision's latest human interface device. Firstly, I would like to introduce the team. My name is Orla McGowan. I'm the team lead for this project. Alexander Kritsunas is our technical lead, and Meg Ryan and Rasha Courtney are our business and marketing strategists. We have been tasked with designing Revision's latest human interface device, or HID. Current human interface devices used by the US military that are made by Revision are durable devices that can only be used by feel, not having to take the user's eyes away from what they're looking at. The device is worn on the chest and operated by the user, reaching up and pressing the desired buttons. Buttons are large and exposed, so the user can feel them through thick gloves. The current HID uses analog connections to connect to radio and the headset. Different HIDs are needed to connect to various equipment. Current HIDs have a number of design issues. Firstly, soldiers stated that they don't like the size or orientation of the wires. The cables have the potential to snag if not tucked under the tactical vest. There are a limited amount of controls currently with radio and headset. The HID requires the user to reach up to their chest to use the radio, something they cannot do while both hands are occupied. This can lead to potentially life-threatening situations. The cable which goes to the user's helmet is inconvenient and may reduce head mobility, particularly in combat while the user is under fire. They're relatively bulky and exposed on the user's torso, prone to damage from shrapnel or unclipping during a bumpy ride. In our design of this HID, we wanted to keep Revision's design methodology at the core of our decisions. The device must be adaptable to future technology, have the user's safety at the forefront, and keep the ergonomics and user comfort in mind. We believe our solution meets these criteria to create a safer, more convenient, and future-proof human interface device.
Our solution to solve these issues is the TACHID, the Tactical Advanced Control Human Interface Device, a glove-based HID with the end user in mind. TACHID allows the user to retain the same controls as the previous Revision HID, but while allowing the user to maintain a handhold on whatever he or she currently has a grasp on. For example, allowing a rifleman to operate the radio while also maintaining the ability to fire simultaneously, or to quickly adjust volume or radio settings. This also opens up the possibility of quick navigation of the heads-up display in the near future. The buttons can be switched based on the user's preference and chirality, and each glove will be connected by a small wire to the user's tactical vest, transmitter, and battery. This means that future helmets can be smaller and lighter, as the battery will not necessarily need to be helmet mounted. The future is uncertain, and militaries around the globe are always looking to expand their infantry's capabilities. Future soldiers are likely to carry personal unmanned aerial vehicles for quick reconnaissance, and not having to carry an extra remote control to operate this can be beneficial for soldiers who are already carrying a lot of gear. The ability to take over remote control vehicles can help reduce casualties, either for use of explosive ordnance disposal units or armed drones to directly take the place of an infantry soldier. GPS was originally a United States military project that was opened up to the public use and can provide a significant advantage in combat. A heads-up display can be used to interface with all of these technologies seamlessly. Unfortunately, though, these additional systems will require additional control. The solution for this is the addition of extra control surfaces onto the gloves, such as a control pad on the back of the user's hand or a wrist-mounted control pad. These do take away some of the dexterity and security that TACHID provides, but unfortunately are necessary until mind control interfaces become viable for the control of complex devices like drones and robots. The current Revision HIDs are analog wired units. This provides advantages such as simplicity, but we chose a digital wireless setup for TACHID. It remains compatible with current hardware, such as the COM Center 2 headset, but can also be configured to operate future hardware, such as the heads-up display. Also, less wires means it is more comfortable for the user And easier head movements are also possible because of this, as there is no physical connection between torso and the helmet of the soldier. A very short transmission distance means that a low power signal is sufficient. This reduces the chance of electronic surveillance measures detecting and triangulating the location of the soldier, while also slightly prolonging battery life. This is important as we do not want to have our soldiers be tracked by the enemy. Furthermore, 5.8 gigahertz is already compatible with many drone first-person view systems and can be expanded to be compatible with the remote weapon stations, such as mounted on the military's latest armored vehicles. Unfortunately, though, in a time of war, a backup may be required in case the enemy deploys signal jamming. The system can be adapted depending on the end user's need. For example, fingerless gloves for harsh environments such as the Middle East, or thick, heavily padded gloves with larger buttons for Arctic and Antarctic environments and sub-zero temperatures. Furthermore, special forces operators or specialists such as snipers can also benefit from this because they may prefer lightness and additional dexterity rather than having a full glove, as they may not need the additional protection.
There are inherent benefits with TACIT's digital base. Digital systems offer higher bandwidth, which means more data can be transferred. Digital systems can be updated more easily, leading to longer service life and prolonging the duration before the tech is at risk of becoming obsolete. Digital systems are now the norm, so better support for software is available. Most importantly, digital systems can be encrypted, thus less likely to be used against the user. The soldier of the future is likely to have a heads-up display as part of their capabilities as shown above. Such a system can provide invaluable navigation data, such as a compass on the user's position. Furthermore, data on the user's weapon system and loadout can also be displayed, meaning the user does not need to perform a manual check. An image of the soldier's commanding officer to relay orders or information from another squad member can also help the user under stress. TACIT's directional pad control button can be used to quickly and easily navigate menus, settings, or tactical information, thus giving the user a substantial combat advantage over an opponent without this capability. The directional pad can also be used to control the user's radio easily and quickly. I'll now hand you over to Rasha for our business side.
So we wanted to create a device that is both consumer focused and applicable for every mission, every user, every environment, maintaining the vision's values by keeping the men and the women of the army at the forefront of our minds. Our product is designed to ensure that soldiers, tactical forces, and other users of TAC-HIDE can perform at their peak and prevail through any mission at hand. We analyzed the end user's feedback to create a device to fit the user's need. Therefore, we created a product which eradicates issues that soldiers have had with previous HIDs. There are several unique selling points of the device. We have created an innovative design where there are multiple control functions alongside less wiring, which is an issue that many soldiers have had previously due to the bulkiness. Also, another key selling point is centered around one not needing to take their hand off the gun to operate the headset, which will act more efficiently and save time as it requires less tension to operate the device. The device will also be smaller and waterproof, making it difficult to damage, as there will be a layer of protection over the control functions, and these factors will ensure a more optimal performance. And next, I'll talk about the marketing approach. Our consumer-focused approach is an integral part of our business. Those in the army are serving their country, meaning that it's essential for us here at GlassLogic to create a device that users can rely on in potentially life or death situations. So therefore, we wanted to create innovative means to launch this product. So we decided to create different pop-up events to different military bases with virtual reality simulators to showcase the features of the device by exhibiting soldiers using the product in different scenarios. We will also use paid affiliation to display our product by using influencers such as Vickers Tactico to trial our product. This will highlight the benefits of our product to their large social media following, alongside creating a significant amount of hype surrounding the product. So in terms of our ethics and sustainability and ethics are at the core of our company. Our company is currently adhering to progressive commitments that we have made surrounding the 3 sustainable pillars: economic, social, and environmental. All the design, testing, and manufacturing carried out in Revision's manufacturing facilities in Vermont provide jobs to the local community. We are also committed to gender representation, inclusive company culture, and work-life wage, meaning all our workers across the supply chain are paid a full living wage. The durability of materials ensures a long life cycle of the product and adaptability to new technological means, meaning the product will not become obsolete. I'll now pass you on to Meg.
This innovation definitely has global potential within the defence industry and even in other markets such as the construction industry. However, the United States Department of Defense will act as our test market, which comes to 409,105 total members. This will act as our total available market. By multiplying our total available market, by our cost price of $1,200 per unit, we will get just under $492 million. We have broken down the full and part-time members of the US Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine into the three market segments: regular forces, special force operators, and specialists. The biggest segment being the regular forces, coming to a total of 331,000 members, making up even more than 80% of the total members within the Department of Defense. For our serviceable available market, we've decided to target the biggest market segment within the Department of Defense, which is the regular forces, as I mentioned. We believe that they would be the most interested and most benefited by our device. So by multiplying the figure of the total members within the US Marine Corps and the Marine and the Army, we multiply them by our total serviceable available market, which comes to a total of just over $398 million. For our serviceable obtainable market, we aim to receive 20% of our SAM figure. We will do this by targeting between 4 and 5 of the biggest bases in the US. From our research, this includes Fort Bragg in North Carolina, Fort Campbell in Kentucky, Fort Hood Military Base in Texas, Joint Base Concord in Washington, and Fort Benning in Georgia. This will give us a total of just over $79 million. So in terms of our plans for expansion, we plan on going to the United Kingdom because we believe this is our most viable option. The reasoning behind this is that Revision have a base in England already, and of course, England speaks English. So there will be no language barrier or communication barriers, which will make trade dealers a lot easier. Also, the UK is a member of NATO. We also have goals to expand further into mainland Europe once our preliminary goals are achieved. So here is our pricing strategy. As you can see, our manufacturing cost came to $600. Our selling price will be $1,200. And we worked out that our break-even price will come to $850, giving us a profit margin of 30%. So in this slide here, in the next slide, this is a forecast of our figures. Because a lot of the information and statistics based around the US Department of Defense are commercially sensitive, these are the protections that we've made from what we could find. So as you can see, the sales forecast for year 1 comes to just over $73 million, which is calculated from our serviceable obtainable market. And there's other figures there with cash in and cash out. So thank you very much for listening to our presentation. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. Thank you.
This is the question time, right?
Yeah. So we can start questioning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So maybe I'll just start off. Thanks for the presentation. So can you talk a little bit about your product, which, if I understand correctly, is a glove with multiple components that can be added or deleted, and the targeted customer base, which you talked about, was standard soldiers across the three lines of service. So can you talk a little bit about that? Why you chose something on the glove and the targeted audience?
So currently, infantry in the US and US military use a device for controlling the current HID, current human interface devices. Essentially, it looks like a small radio, and it's mounted, depending on if you're left or right-handed, somewhere on your chest. Now, that system is good and it works, but the problems with it is that the user has to take one hand off, say, their weapon, or if they're operating an inflatable boat, for example, in the Navy, they have to take the hand off the controls in order to operate, in order to use the radio or adjust the radio. So the benefit of ours is, if I may mock up a rifle with this T-square, is while you're holding, say, the standard weapon of the US infantry is the M4 carbine. Now, I'm right-handed, so this is going into my right shoulder. I can, if the button is mounted here, say on my glove, I can be aiming and at the same time relaying my target information to the rest of my squad, or say to an armored vehicle, it's very beneficial. Like, it saves time and it could save lives, like getting a radio call out at the correct moment. The reason it is the US military is because they are the largest military on Earth, and they are the largest military spender on Earth as well. So a lot of that budget does go into sort of innovative projects like this, trying to increase the capability of their military in such a degree.
So, sorry, maybe I should specify, but I mean, why did you choose the regular forces as opposed to the specialists or special force operators?
The reason behind that is almost all soldiers in the US military are riflemen, so they will carry rifles. And the base of our system, the two gloves with the control buttons, is they can be pretty much useful to everybody, whether you are an infantryman or whether you're in the Navy or whether you're in the Air Force. And the reason, sort of, as you say, the regular infantry is because it's the largest number of soldiers in the US military are infantrymen in the Army. And this not only provides a large market, but it also provides a large testing bed, and a lot of feedback can come back to improve and modify the design as required.
Okay, thank you.
I have a follow-up question, actually. So thank you for explaining why you targeted that market. One of the considerations, however, for that customer base is that they're extremely price conscious, and the pricing that you are proposing represents a 150% increase, right? It's 1.5 times, right, the current pricing, more or less. So what is the benefit that offsets the cost that you are pushing to your customer? Because on their end, that's a substantial cost increase. So what are the benefits that justify them undertaking significant cost?
So unfortunately, there is pretty much no way to make the system as cheap as the current one, with the current technology and with the current system already being implemented and already being used very widely. They have reduced the manufacturing and sales price of that to a big degree. The reason the system justifies that cost is, if I may use a metaphor, in the US cavalry, in the tank forces, the general line of thinking is it is better to lose the tank and retain the crew, make the crew survive, and just buy another tank or manufacture another tank rather than have to replace the crew, because the crew is already trained, they're efficient, and they are human. So there's an inherent very big value to human life. And this system, for example, if I may use my T-square again, let's say I'm out on patrol and I am marching somewhere in Afghanistan or Syria or wherever, and I immediately spot an enemy, I can not only take aim to defend myself, but I can also at the same time use the button on the radio to very quickly and very efficiently communicate. Whereas with the current system, I'd either have to drop my weapon, essentially be unable to fire, or take defensive action before I can call out to the rest of my squad that there's danger and we may enter combat soon. So what this in the worst scenario, which is the one that all soldiers dread, this could save your life in the worst possible scenario.
I might add to that as well, that the option for the upgradable technology, that they should last a lot longer than the current devices do. So therefore, that should actually make it more profitable in the long run.
One last question before I leave the floor to Aida or Hagu. What is the current rate of deaths caused by the existing HID unit, and what is the projected improvement in safety with this proposed solution?
Unfortunately, we do not have access to those statistics very accurately. The US military do not, when they show their casualties, they do not specify, like they're not going to necessarily know that it was because Sergeant John was unable to call out in time. But what that means is it's an effect on morale for soldiers, that they're going to be a little bit more confident knowing that they can go out and they can do this. And the effect of morale is something that's quite difficult to calculate, but a weaker army with poor equipment and poor training can prevail over a technologically superior, numerally superior military attacking them if they have morale advantage and if they think they can survive.
Understood.
So, unfortunately, I cannot provide you with exact numbers as those are not available, but there's definitely going to be an increase, if not in total life saved, but definitely be an increase in morale for the soldiers.
Perfect. No further questions for me.
Hey, I have a couple of questions. Thank you, everyone. And let's go back to the design itself. So let me start from the beginning. Why the original device is bulky? Do you know? Why it's a bit?
You mean the chest-mounted unit?
Yes. Why it's bulky? Why they say it's bulky? Why they wanted to change it?
It's
they said they
primarily
changed
bulky.
it, but analog to digital. This is, I understand why it's bulky. What's taking all of this space?
The main reason that space is taken up is because the soldier is already going to wear, more than likely, soldiers are advised to wear gloves because they need to have the large buttons to be able to operate them with the gloves anyway. And because they need to be made of thick plastic to withstand potential shrapnel or not so much gunfire, but definitely shrapnel or falling over impacts, such things. So they have to be big in order to protect the electronics inside and to have the buttons be able to be operated by a soldier with gloves already.
I think also if what you were saying was about why is our device so much smaller, there will be hardware attached to this as well. It won't just be the glove. So the glove will be attached to a wire which will go up to a unit on the shoulder where most of the hardware will actually.
Yeah, like this is what was my next question. So now, yes, like the buttons on the glove does not, like, there is no device there. It's just buttons. So where's the battery? Like, where's the device? Where's the antennas? Where's everything?
Yeah, that will all be stored. Alex might go further, but like in a device that would be somewhere on the shoulder or on the back or something, and that will probably be a similar size and shape to the old HID, but it won't involve the user to actually have to touch it or use it or ever have to reach at it. It'll just be like a storage for the hardware.
So it's, again, I'm adding like like they have like if you go to your problem identification, one of the problems with the connections, they were saying like lots of connections. I read it, at least in the case. One of the problems with the connections between the HID and the other devices. So you didn't solve this problem because I still have the connections.
But see, there is less, definitely though. So there was the connection to the headset and the connection to the radio, and whatever other connections you had. So like there was kind of like 3 or 4 different dongles out of it. So in this case, you only have one wire. So at least that would stop them getting tangled in each other, or it's a lot. It's reduced anyway, the amount of cables that there are.
Yeah, if I may add, what my colleague is saying is that essentially that problem with current technology is unsolvable. Like, we could have these buttons on our gloves, we could have the whole transmitter and battery unit on the glove itself, but that at current battery density and at current transmitter power levels, this is just unfeasible. It'll be a big.
This was my question. Like, this is unfeasible. Where you will put all of this? I have another question regarding the joystick and the watch for the GPS. Again, the joystick, how heavy would be the joystick? Like how much I can put on my glove? Like you said, this is the way that you expanded to use it in like with other devices, but like mounting a joystick on your glove, how this would work?
So the idea behind the joystick is that it is essentially impossible, again, at current technology levels, to be able to control some cars currently, they have this ability to gesture control, so you can use your hands and to wave to control the volume and things. It's possible to control simple things like that with such a system in a civilian environment, but in the military, trying to do something like that would be hugely unpractical. The idea behind the joystick or the wrist-mounted device is that you can attach or remove these as they are required. So, for example, the joystick there, that will go in a place where an extra patch of Kevlar will go for extra protection when it is required, and that allows the user to have at least one joystick to be able to control drone, whether aerial or ground-based.
Okay, one of the requirements was it should be adaptable to future technologies, like technologies that we don't have right now. Where we can see this, how this is happening in your design.
The current system is that chest-mounted unit, which goes from a wire up to the user's headset, where he can control the radio, the 4 buttons that are on the chest-mounted rig. Our system is different because it's digital. It can be sort of, instead of being more like an analog watch with buttons where you adjust the time on the watch with a physical button, this is more sort of akin to like having a mobile phone or a very small tablet. It runs off a small computer, and it's software. So the software, can be updated or it can be changed to suit those needs as they come in the future. So, for example, one of those is a digital interface with the current radio system that is used by the U.S. military, as was mentioned previously in the presentation. And what that means is,
I have to stop you because there are other judges. They need to ask questions. So I'll say thank you here, and I will leave it to them.
Thank you.
So I just have a quick question. Can you go to the slide where you're showing the benefits of going digital?
This one, yeah.
So the last point, what do you mean by more importantly, digital systems can be encrypted and then less likely to be used against the user? For that last sentence.
I believe I expanded on a different presentation more on this. So basically, a digital system can be encrypted. What that means is, even in the worst case scenario where this is intercepted, where the soldier wearing this is in a position to have his transmission intercepted, whoever intercepts the transmission will not necessarily be able to use any of that information because it's encrypted, whereas a wired or an analog system can be. What that means is, at worst, someone can know that a soldier is in the area, but because the data is encrypted, the GPS signal between him and the satellites cannot be decoded, or hopefully cannot be decoded, so it cannot be used to locate where he is, for example, for the enemy to conduct an artillery strike on that location, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I understand the part about encryption, but in terms of the analog component being more likely to be hijacked, that's the part I don't understand.
That's just a limitation of analog systems, because it's just how it works. It's going very deep into computer science.
Okay, well, I would dispute that, in that there is a rise in cyber attacks given everything is going digital now. So you're actually more likely to be compromised these days. But I was just trying to understand the reasoning why this was an advantage. I understand in terms of longevity and upgradability and all that, but
yeah, no, I think that makes sense. But in terms of, like, even in the brief, it said that Revision wants to go digital. So I suppose really we knew that there was a danger there when going digital, that it can be hacked or it can be at risk of cyber attacks. So like, this was our solution to, because the obvious risk with digital is the hacking. So at least by encrypting it, we're trying to limit that risk, I suppose.
Yeah, it's going to depend on. If I may just add one more thing, you're absolutely correct. It does bring the risk of cyber attacks, but that will unfortunately it's just a limitation with digital, and we'll have to rely on the cryptologists encrypting the signals to prevent that from becoming a serious issue in the future.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you for the presentation. Everything was very nice.
Thank you.
Okay, so judges can now move. Okay, so your feedback period starts now.
Hello.
Okay, GlassLogic, thank you so much for that presentation. I know it was pretty hectic in the past 6 hours to get the case and then start working on it, find the solutions and put all of your research together. So congratulations, that presentation was well put together. We do acknowledge the research that went into it and everything that, all the effort that went into putting all of it together. If I had to start with feedback about the presentation itself, I think something to take back is probably, in the slides where you are demonstrating the product, you can probably add a few more specifics to it. So all audience members can follow as you're going through your product description. Definitely helps. I mean, we do acknowledge that you did have a sort of an elevator pitch prepared, which is wonderful. You should always have that prepared. So good for that. Good, good for you for doing that, as well as your Q&A. Very well done on that as well. It looks like you did anticipate some of those questions and you were prepared for the answers. And special shout out for backing your colleagues and adding onto their points to make sure that you're giving the best answers to your audience members. That's definitely important. It shows teamwork. Let's move on to the engineering design portion. With any product design, there's certainly room for improvement, as there is with this. We did feel that there were a few design specifics that were intention to solve the current problems, but we're not necessarily moving in that particular direction and might probably add some more challenges that need to be solved. So that's on the engineering side. On the business solution side, probably some more research would be beneficial in terms of why are you targeting that specific target market amongst the 3 target markets that have been specified in the case, especially when it comes to budget and how you're demonstrating your cost versus your benefits. So that's a piece of feedback over there as well. Definitely appreciate your thought into putting in the ethics and sustainability pieces. Probably something more to think about is how does that expand and how does that become easier to manage? Because once you have even adopted the product, a part of sustainability is how you're maintaining that product over time, right? So that's probably something to consider. So that's the feedback that we have for you. Did I miss anything, judges team? Is there anything that anyone would like to add to that?
I have a comment. Agreed with everything that Tanvi said. When you're doing your presentation, if there's 2 key parts of the mandate, in this case, one of them was design and the other one was making sure that your business case is properly supported. Given that the business case requires many elements, pricing, costing, cash flows, all of that, marketing, make sure that when you're allocating your time, that you successfully split it closer to 50-50, possibly even 60-40, right? Because to cover the many little topics in a business case properly, if you do a minute each, we're already at 5-6, make sure that you give time for that, because there's a lot of questions. And if you're doing a pitch to a company, they're necessarily going to have a lot of questions there. So you want to make sure that you've covered your material so that they're not left wondering if you didn't get to it or you didn't think of it, right? So we saw a lot of what you did, but just next time, keep that in mind.
If there's a minute, I can add something. It's okay. Okay. When you're showing your engineering design, the design itself, you have to specify what kind of technology that you would be using to satisfy this. Like you said, we are using digital technology. Okay, what kind of digital technology, what kind of batteries, what kind of, like, we have lots of different, like, what are the digital technology? Even when you show, like, I'm not a business, like I'm not in business, but what I was looking for when you are showing your numbers, that if I'm, like, how much the antennas, the digital antennas will cost. Like you said, the pricing will be so and so, but this pricing is based on components. So those, how much, like, from where you will get the components, how much those components will cost, all this research and all of those points should be in your like presentation. Like I was looking for them, like it's the part.
Yeah, we were trying to do it, but the amount of time it was taking to find, you know, the way when you're trying to find, I don't know if you have any advice on how to find prices for things, because a lot of the time the websites you're ordering them from won't tell you a price unless you ring them up and ask for a quote, because you're, you know, buying it in bulk. Would you have any advice on how to get prices kind of quickly?
If you can't get them, put a wild ass guess, but show that you can break it out. So your cost is 600, components this, key component, whatever, and just put a placeholder so that we know you thought of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know what? Even with the Reddit, like if you go to the Reddit website, yeah, this is the reality. This is how students do projects now. They go there and they will look for, you will find it. Like you will find it there. You will find some people.
So it doesn't really matter how accurate they are. It's really you just want to see the breakdown.
Like you can say some, actually, as June said, like you can use some estimate.
Yeah.
But it's from, like, you can get it from any. Even the estimates could be based on the technology that we have currently, like the Apple Watch. How much the Apple Watch is costing right now, and you will see lots of people talking. Okay, the Apple Watches really cost so, and they sell it for so.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
you can
that's
get
perfect.
The estimates from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're mute. Yusuf, you're mute. Yeah.
Amateur mistake, sorry. I just wanted to commend your preparation. Everything was on time. It was well spoken to, presented. So definitely those are the positives for me.
Thank you.
Just one thing, I think great job doing it virtually and together. Mm-hmm. The one thing I'd encourage you to think about as you do a presentation like this with multiple people is the story and the linkage. So think of it as the whole presentation as opposed to breaking it down into your individual parts, and make sure that there's a stronger link and a complete story. So if you think of it like that, it may help you.
And if there's 30 seconds left, I'd like to shout out, I agree with all the feedback, but I thought the visuals were quite good. I've seen a lot of student presentations and case comps, and the fact that there was no superfluous data, the color coding, the blue was nice, not hard for us to look at. The visuals was definitely one of the better ones that I've seen. So good job on that. Because it matters a lot, especially now that you're visual, that we're all remote, right? The importance of those goes up. And also good job with the, the backgrounds, the sound and all of that. That was well regulated. No one was louder than the others, which is surprisingly distracting. So that was really good. It allowed us to really be open to your message, right? And focus on your content because we weren't distracted by any of those details, which is what you want. So that was really, really good.
Thank you
very much.
Thanks very much.
All right, so if that's it, people from you may leave the room. And also judges, we will not be taking a break right now. We will go directly to the second team. We apologize for that. So yeah, so Glass Logic, please leave the room.
Thanks so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your feedback. It's very useful. We appreciate it.
And best wishes for this term.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right, I will admit the other team. Sorry, judges. Hi, Game Cook team. Is everybody on your team here in the Zoom?
Sabrina, I think your voice is going in and out.
Oh no.
Okay, so Sabrina's having mic problems, so you guys can start. So it's going to be 15 minutes presentation, Q&A, and then 5 minutes deliberation and 10-minute feedback period. And I'm going to be holding up placards for the 10-minute, 5-minute, and 1-minute mark. So you guys can start now.
Do we need to share our screen to present?
Yeah, you need to share your screen for the PowerPoint.
Okay. 1 moment. Oh, wait. Sorry, my computer's freezing. It's a lot going on. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. Can everyone see the screen?
Okay. So I'll start. So welcome everyone to our presentation on how to digitize human interface devices for the future of revision military. We are Team 1, the Gamecock Consulting Club. Our team brings a wide variety of management consulting experience alongside strong specific knowledge in chemical engineering, mathematics, computer science, international business, finance, economics, and management.
So first we'll be starting off a little bit about our project scope and its structure. As you can see to the right, we have 4 presentation modules that are designed to help you understand our thought process and decision-making criteria when recommending a redesign in Revision Military's HID. So the first area that we'll start in today is problem identification. So not just identifying the current problems with Revision Military's HID, but also understanding what the needs are of the target market. From there, we'll be introducing our redesign launch. Jessica and Natalie will walk you through a little bit of the redesign and some of its key features. And then those last 2 steps will focus a little bit more on the business analysis and the business side of things. So understanding the competitive landscape that's really driving whether this idea is feasible and how it scales up against our competitors in the market right now, as well as growth projections. So looking into our pricing strategy, how we determine that pricing, and then some revenue projections moving forward.
So now we're just going to identify the problem and determine a target market for our redesigned HID product. And so based on research into the US military market, we identified the target market to be specialists and special force operators, specifically Navy SEALs, DevGru, and Army Rangers. We found that the target market has a larger budget for military expenditures and would give Revision more flexibility with the development of the new HID product. And special force operators and specialists also have specialized missions and a more individualized focus in which a redesigned HID device would be best suited for. And on the right, you can see a map of the markets of the HID. We just specifically highlighted US special forces around the world in the years 2012 through 2013. By the numbers, we have that there are 70,000 special forces around the world from the US, and they make up about 5% of total US special forces. However, this group comprises nearly all of US combat casualties, which shows the need for high-tech, reliable equipment that could have the potential to decrease these numbers. And also with how spread out these forces are around the world, we can see that the need for the HID device to work across all different environments. Next, I'm going to talk more about some of the problems that arise and what kind of limitations that the current HID device has. What the biggest problem is that there's analog technology, so there are only radio-only capabilities, there's a lack of a digital solution, and there's an inability to enable data transfers, and it isn't operable with other devices. There's also a lot of cables and issues with the placement of the HID device. The size and orientation of the cables are disfavorable for some of the people that use them, and they inhibit functionality on the uniform sometimes. There's also lack of control options, as the current HID device only has 4 buttons with limited functionality, and there's no controls for specialized missions. So the needs include more digital technology, adding image, data, and video transfer capability, operability with other devices. We also wanted to include minimal wiring, removal of excess wiring, and increase the mobility with this new device. And finally, we wanted to increase the control options by improving functionality and allowing micro drone UAV controls as well.
So now to kind of introduce our new redesign that we're proposing, there's a few special features that we're specifically proposing. Mainly, we're focusing more on having a more digitalized HID design, and that would include more data transfer. And so we would be able to receive images, maps, and videos possibly from drones or other military personnel and to those people on the front lines, without decreasing, however, the functionality and simplicity of the current design. The current design is easy to use. And so keeping that easy to use design. We also wanted to make it go wireless. And so some of the complaints were that with other design that the wires on the personnel were troublesome. And so we wanted to make this design more wireless, and so that goes along with the digitalization of our new design. And we're also going to connect this new design to the already functioning app that Revision uses for the headgear that it sells to the military. And so keeping all of the Revision devices on one app allows it to be very functional across a lot of different aspects and very simple in design. And this digital design connected to the app also allows it to be adaptive in the future and allows the technology to be easily upgraded. Just through upgrading the app, you are able to upgrade the HID as well. And so as technology continues to improve in the future, you're able to continue that improvement with the HID without having to go through long periods of non-use. So this is our actual HID redesign that we are proposing. You can see on the left side of the screen is the front design, and the right side of the screen is the back design. So on the front design, continuing with that simple design that was previously used, but adding some more modern features, we see a screen in the middle of the device, and on the left side the button is used for volume, and the 3 buttons on the right side are used to switch between radio channels. You can see there's no ports or outlets because it is going to be a wireless system, so you're able to hook up wirelessly to radios and to your phone, and the app will be able to upgrade the HID, the digital version, the digital part of the HID, and so you are able to continue keeping up with the times in the future. And you can also see that on the back design that there's a clip, and that's able to put the device on any part of the soldier, wherever they see fit for their current environment. And you can also see that it has kind of a curved design. This is for it to be more easily adjusted and resembles somewhat of how you would place your hand on it. So it is more simple and ergonomic in design. And this slide just shows an example of how you would use the new redesigned HID in live action. So of course you would have to register it, just how you would do how the Revision works with the headset. You would do the same kind of idea with the HID with the app. And then once you're all hooked up, you can receive images, maps, and videos to your HID while you're on the ground. So these could be received from maybe drones or other military personnel behind the scenes. So the military personnel on the field are able to more readily see their environment and have better capabilities in combat. And then also in the future, they're able to receive updates for their HID through having the app update automatically. Once the app updates, it will automatically update the HID, which with any new technologies or data sharing capabilities in the future.
So now we'll be looking into a little bit of the business feasibility of this redesign for the HID. So we'll start by doing a competitor analysis, and then we'll get into pricing. To the left, we have a graph that shows the versatility compared to its price. In other words, what value are our competitors offering with their similar products? There are two competitors that we did not put on this graph due to the lack of pricing data that we had. But as you can see, some major takeaways from this graph is that all of them are versatile in their use, which they need to be in order to be successful military devices in different branches of the military. Two particularly low rankers are the TCI and the TEA. That's because the TCI solely focuses on maritime operations, similarly just with the Navy. And the TEA has very high specialization on multiple communication devices. Similar with Invisio, they have a very high price because it's focused on group communication rather than individual one-on-one communication. So from this graph and from what we were able to find on our competitors, you can see some of the key insights to the right. We knew that we needed a very targeted value proposition to those Navy SEALs that we're targeting or Rangers on the ground, but we also wanted the ability to serve multiple markets and industries. So in other words, we wanted to get the best of both worlds when designing this HID. And so as you can see, now we'll move into a cross-competitor analysis, comparing the Revision HID redesign to its two closest competitors, the 3M Peltor and the Silix Claris. The 3M Peltor is a very basic device that really just meets the bare bones of what's needed for military operations, whereas the Silix has a versatility in use cases and industries. So we wanted to design a device that compares the best of both of these competitors. So as you can see from the checklist, the Revision HID design hits everything, including the ability to serve multiple markets like law enforcement in the future or potentially industrial manufacturing, and just not compatible for two communication devices given the market that we're serving.
So based on our group's analysis, Revision Military has strong internal capabilities to allow this HID redesign to scale. We find that the strong collaboration with Revision Military Technologies and the US state government at the SX research facility on top secret matters for the Army and Navy will make the product feedback loop for our selected segments more successful. And thus we find that the redesign for Army Rangers and Navy SEALs, as well as Navy dev crews, will be able to scale quickly and meet the user's needs better. We also find that the current product mix and the subsequent production locations will make this production matters easier of this new redesign, since large geographic distances are not an issue. And we would also reasonably scale our production more than our competitors who have production facilities spread across the world. And on the right-hand side, we can see some estimations of where the production of individual parts could come from based on the current production sites of Revision Military. So we recommend that Revision pushes towards a combination of cost and competitor-based pricing over penetration and value-based pricing, since we find taking material and production costs in addition to market trends are crucial for sustainable market uptake. And Alexis will touch on our pricing strategy more in the next slide.
So these are just rough conservative estimates of revenue that we could generate given our target market of SEALs, DevGrews, and Rangers. As you can see, we have a personnel breakdown of how many personnel are in each branch of the military, as well as an average product price that we use using Desi's pricing structure that she just proposed. Two important things to note, though, are notes at the bottom that we are targeting a smaller market, but we can customize our product offering depending on what is needed. So we can always scale this back down for regular forces. And then we're also designing this product to be versatile, meaning expansion into other industries. So when it comes to law enforcement, for example, they can have the coordinates of a vehicle being tracked, or they can get messages from a more general command center to save time on the fly. So based on this, we have an annual projected revenue off to the right with a total revenue of 12.35 million, which is a positive projection for Revision Military's redesign of the HID. So that's a rough analysis of kind of the business side of things of how this is feasible for Revision Military's HID combined with the redesign that we proposed. We'd be happy to field any questions, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you. So the Q&A session can start now.
Okay, maybe I'll start. Okay, hi everyone. Very nice presentation. Thank you all for everything. I just want to go back to the design. So just a few questions regarding the design. So yeah, here. So you said those three buttons are to change, like I didn't really get it. So the three buttons themselves, one, for example, if I press one, it will be radio signals. If I press the other one, I'll be communicating with my other devices, or how it would work.
So basically, soldiers usually have two radios on them. A lot of them do. Usually they're connected by the two cords coming out of the HID devices. So we propose that we have these three buttons. If they have possibly two radios in another device, that they're able to press one button, which corresponds to radio 1 possibly, and then the second button to radio 2.
Okay, so those are different radio channels, and like this is how I will change.
Yes.
The way. Okay. Another question is, are you not afraid of going totally wireless? Like in a battleground, can someone jam the signals? You didn't think about jamming the communication?
Right now, we were confident in our ability to create a wireless network that'd be secure. And that could be something that we would look into the future if that did become a problem.
Yeah, I think no feedback now. So those are our only questions. There is a way to jam, like so totally wireless could be. Another small question was, so this device will only, the user will be able to communicate to each other, but I will not be able to control other devices like the robots or the drones or anything like this.
In our design, we did think that we would be able to control the drones and stuff through the actual screen. So we were originally thinking about doing a maybe a toggle or something like that to control them, but we thought that may clog due to dust in different environments. So we opted for more the digital screen version.
So it will be, the control will be done through the, like, it will be a touch screen that I will be able to use it to control drones, yeah, or robots or anything like this. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll stop my questions here and leave it to someone else. So.
Yeah, I could go next. I think I'm just going to piggyback on Ada's questions over there. First of all, thank you so much for the presentation and all the thought and effort that you have put into this and all the research that has gone into it. Really appreciate it. My question is probably something to do with the images that you said can be transferred, or even the map data that can be transferred onto the screen. You did mention that you will be using a wireless system. Can you elaborate on what is the technology that will be used for the data transfer, especially in terms of images and maps?
Yeah. So right now, it would be more of a new technology that we would be developing. The current issue that there is with the technology and digitalizing HID is that it requires more battery when you switch it to digital. And so this would be a new technology that we would be developing. And so you would increase the actual bandwidths that you're able to get with the device in order to have the equal amount of battery time without increasing the bulkiness of the actual device on the person.
Okay. And this is probably a slightly more basic question, but I couldn't quite gather that. What is, when an image does get transferred onto the HID, how, what is the system or what is the technology that is being used to transfer that? Is it, a specific ID? Does the device have its own unique ID to which data can be transferred? How does that happen? Or does that go to all HIDs within a particular range?
So the way that we were thinking about this was that when you originally hook up the app to the HID, that the person that would be hooking that app up to their headset and their HID would have a unique like identification to that device. And so when someone would be sending something, that unique identifier would be used to make sure that you would be sending it to the right person and not randomly. And you could also have those IDs under like a group, so that let's say you're in a troop of people and you're going out together, that everybody is associated in that number, and then everybody can be sent that as a mass message as well. So every individual user of the HID would have like a unique number or serial, like whether it be serial number or ID number. However, I don't know how the military currently operates with their personal identification techniques or things like that, but we would have a way for them to distinguish the recipient of each message. Yes.
Okay. And I had one more question, if that's okay. You did mention in your identification of target market at the beginning of the presentation that they do have very high combat casualties. I think you mentioned all of them. So in terms of enhancing this device, how does this enhance their protection and help in mitigate, or could potentially help in mitigating those casualties?
Sure. So a lot of casualties happen when there is a miscommunication between what's happening and the people currently on the ground. And so that's mitigated through drone images, sending photos of the opposing side, what's going on above the ground, so you can see what direction you should go. Maybe you lose someone or you can't find someone, you need to GPS them or figure out where they are, figuring out like what images from the drones, where they are, how to meet back up with the other people in your troop, things like that. And also in general, being able to fly those mini drones better with that the device to be able to control them would also be better as well, because you can have better control over those drones. And in general, you're able to see more of what's going on the ground and share more information with people around you as well. So it increases visual components and not just radio.
So with the same form factor, how do you see it being clipped on the way they do it currently?
Yes, that is our current, you can see in this slide, the back design with just the clip. And we see it being a little bit more versatile than the current design, because you wouldn't be strapped on then having all the wires coming from the top and the bottom. You could more easily put it where the soldier sees fit for that certain environment.
And if I guess a follow-up question is, if you clip it on here and you have a digital screen, how do you read it?
Well, it could also be unclipped if you were needing to see an image or something like that. And it could be attached maybe to your forearm and to your jacket there if you wanted to read it like that. So yeah, we just thought clipping it here might be useful if you're not necessarily using the digital screen at the moment, but more using the buttons for volume and radio control.
Okay. And the second thing is, with this form factor and everything that you want to put into it, because you're talking about a battery, you're talking about some kind of storage, a microprocessor, and an antenna. Do you think that you have enough space to be able to do this with this form factor?
Yes, I think that we would have enough space. If you consider the newest model of the Rackle Elite, which is one of their key competitors, they actually do have an antenna built into it. So this technology certainly is possible, and it has been demonstrated through its direct competitors. Potentially through wireless, we would hope to make a smaller antenna, as the Rackle Elite's antenna kind of affected the mobility and kind of the ergonomics of holding the device. But it certainly is possible. And we made sure that we considered that before we made any type of proposal with this new technology, making sure that this has been successful on the competitor scale.
Okay. And just a quick question in terms of how it works. So you're looking at the HID connecting to another device that's actually transmitting the wireless signals, or is the HID itself transmitting wireless signals, the radio signals and everything else? How does that work in terms of?
So this is actually in conjunction with that connector headset that pairs with the HID device. So Revision Military currently has an app designed in order to readjust the headset settings. So there's spatial settings, the volume settings, more specific volume settings than you would get on that chest device. So that application remotely controls the overall settings for the headset. And that headset is compatible with the HID device, as well as a lot of competitors will also only make an HID device compatible with their headset. So our logic behind this was using that application more than just pairing it with the headset, and actually using that application to then configure those major settings in the HID. And depending on the mission, depending on the branch of the military that you decide to market to and you decide to distribute this technology to, they could then on the application kind of customize what those buttons are used for. So not all of them, that front button would be used for volume. Potentially it could be used for something else that would be relevant to the mission.
All right, great, thanks.
So related to that, I have a question. So your proposed pricing is more than double the existing upper range of pricing, right? 1,900 versus, I believe the current model, it tops up at $900. And I agree that your target market, the special forces and the specialists, are the ones that have the biggest budget for spend on equipment. What is your pitch to your market to justify doubling your price? What is the benefit that you're bringing to them that will lead them to want to pay this?
The benefit that we're offering to them is the uniqueness in our design and the capabilities of the HID device. So this was a major consideration when we were going into our target market and our pricing, because I understand right now the top competitor model is $1,300. So this exceeds that by $600. So we wanted to make sure that we had a good offering for them, considering that the SEAL teams, DevGru, and Rangers are very specialized in their operations, and considering the Rangers are specialists, meaning that they need that high level of customization for their devices. That is what justifies our product offering and our product price compared to that. So no other product on the market has this digital screen right now. No other product on the market has the app connectivity capability. So the limitations that the current market has in the HID device is simply adjusting the volume, toggling the volume, and 2 or 3 buttons maybe. Whereas this offers insight to soldiers on the ground at a deeper level. And instead of them pulling out their phone to get intelligence from a general command center, they have that all available on them. So it actually lessens their time to maybe respond to an event that's going on or to acknowledge a mission. They can do that on their chest device rather than take out their phone and do it from there.
Understood. However, my understanding is that by placing the product on the chest, the screen is going to be of limited use and would only be used for very specific instances, and that keeping the location of this revised product where it currently is on the soldier, most of the time it will be used for similar purposes of the existing product, just having those digital capabilities. What value does the screen, seeing as the screen is possibly one of the most expensive components on this piece of equipment, what value does it bring to the soldier in your price? Relative value, sorry, what relative value does it bring to your soldier in the pricing that you're proposing?
Exactly, I understand what you're saying. I understand that, and I think that is an important consideration. When we think of if they needed a basic device, they would be using something similar to our current HID offering. So we're not saying eliminate that offering from the market. We're saying that this would be supplementary to that. So I understand your point that not all of them will be on specialized missions, and maybe that general HID model would be better for them. This is projected based on those members within the SEAL teams, DevGru, and Rangers that are going to consistently be on these special missions, and that they know that the screen would bring them value, because we understand that is the major cost component here, especially when it comes to research and development, understanding how this is going to be manufactured and distributed. So our product value, we believe, comes in the specific forces within SEAL, DevGru, and Rangers that need these types of devices. So even if we did adjust these personnel numbers down a little bit, at the bottom, we do have that note that this can be scaled across industries. So in a way that balances it out, but I think if we went back, maybe we could scale that down a little bit to account for your point.
Perfect, no further questions from me.
Just going back to the product, so do you have the dimensions? And how is it controlled exactly? Is it using the buttons?
Sorry, I did not mean to, don't know what just happened in my, We don't have the current dimensions exactly. And I'm sorry, could you repeat the second part of your question?
So how do you control it? Like it's a screen with some buttons, or do you control it with the buttons?
So you would control like the radio through the buttons on the side, and then the volume button, and then the actual screen. You would be able to receive images just through the screen and just accepting it. And then when it comes to like, it would be like an accept or like a view kind of button. And then when you were looking to control an external device, it would be more you would be able to drag the your finger across the screen to direct the actual device that you're trying to control.
So it's a touch screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So the Q&A period is now over. So judges, please go to the breakout room.
Thanks, everyone.
Natalie, can you just join the breakout room, please? Thanks.
Okay, do we have everyone here?
Yeah, so I think we can start now.
Okay, great. So thank you, team, for that presentation. Thank you for all the efforts that you've put in. Really appreciate all the research that you've done, and in a very short period of time, you had a lot to put together. So there was a lot of thought process that went into it, but you really connected. You connected your pieces together quite well. So thank you so much for doing that. We did have a couple of specific feedback when it came to the engineering solution as well as the business solution. So I'll pass it off to Yusuf for the engineering solution piece.
Sure. So look, I think the innovation was lacking a bit in terms of the design. The details as well were really missing. I had a good high level understanding of what you could do, but not really beyond that. So maybe just, I know you focused a lot on the financials and the presentation in terms of identifying the problem, which the rest of the team will address, and I think it was very good. But in terms of the actual component, right? And when later on, when you're talking about what value does it bring, you weren't really able to bridge the gap because, well, we weren't able to do it because we couldn't really identify what value was coming from that product. So just some notes for the future, try to have a more balanced approach in that it doesn't necessarily have to be technical, but you just have to be able to speak to it and say, okay, what does this really do? And hypothetically, how could it be addressing some of the current issues?
You're on mute, June.
You're on mute. Yeah.
You're on mute.
Basic mistake. So for the business side of things, I really liked that you guys took the time to think about how you would produce this, how you would manufacture, whether or not the existing facilities would enable you guys to deliver your proposed solution. That is the kind of big picture thinking that often, well, that is necessary, right? Because that detail of how you're actually going to execute your plan can derail your proposed solution. So I really like that. I did feel there was a disconnect between your target market, which is known to be very specialized and known to have access to higher budgets, a disconnect between that and then your slide that was going about your pricing strategy, about either we could do value added, we could do cost competitive, and then there's this hybrid approach that doesn't seem justified given your target market. And so following that was a bit of a distraction. Didn't quite understand that. And then the financials themselves were, I would have liked to see more information. For example, there's this frequently mentioned R&D. So what is the CapEx required to do that? What would be the payback period, given that you're going to be making all these investments and that you're targeting a smaller market? What is your break-even cost or break-even volume that you need in order to justify your pricing? Maybe something, I guess the tip is whenever you're going to propose doubling the price to your existing market, make sure you do a sensitivity analysis, because almost every market, even the US Army, is likely to blink a little bit. So you want to make sure that your business case can withstand any pushback from your market when you're coming to them with such a huge increase in price. So I would have liked to see that. But again, that you didn't jump straight into just, a nice little cash flow projection, that you did take the time to think about this intermediary, basically supply chain, right? Thinking production, manufacturing. That was excellent, because I did not expect that. And that definitely added to the credibility of your proposed solution from a business perspective.
Just have one comment. It's regarding, it's not engineering, it's not business, it's regarding the presentation. At the very beginning, Daisy, yes, your mic was not so clear, like there was some kind of an echoing in it. And at some point also, one of your friends were talking and I think you were not on mute. So there were like, you can hear the echo. So it's very important, put yourself, if you are not talking, put yourself on mute. This is very, very important. Okay.
Maybe just one thing, in terms of how you presented it, looking at the problem definition, the issues, and understanding what the potential solution could be. You did that very well. You went further than that and looked at the competitors and what a product should be compared to them. So I think those particular aspects were particularly good.
Agreed. Tanvi, where are you?
Oh, I'm right here. I think I gave all the feedback that I had to. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Good on my end.
Are we on time, timekeeper?
Yeah, we're on time. So if you guys are done, we're gonna have a break until 5:40. So you can leave the Zoom room if you want, but just make sure to be back by 5:40.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody.
So much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening and best wishes for this term.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
We're good for today, right? Like the team?
Whoops. Yeah, so like the team, you guys are done for today.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hello, KMJK. So you guys can start presenting.
Yeah, so I'll be the timekeeper. So it's going to be 15-minute presentation, 15-minute Q&A, 5-minute deliberations, and 10-minute feedback. I'll be putting up placards for the 10-minute, 5-minute, and 1-minute mark.
We can go?
Soldiers and officers are protecting their countries and communities all year round. But who is looking out for them in order to ensure their safety? We need to make sure that these brave souls receive the best equipment and are protected in every manner possible. That's where we come in. We are KMJK Consulting, and we're here today to offer our recommendation on how to make the most encompassing HID. Hi, my name is Jasmine, and I'm here today with my colleagues Karen, Kira, and Marley to present you with Revision My HID Strategy. So now let's take a look at the agenda for today. We're going to start off with the current situation, look at the executive summary, situational analysis, then proceed to the decision matrix and our recommendation to finally look at our implementation and the key takeaways. So to start off with the current situation, I'll now pass it off to Karen.
Perfect. Thank you, Jasmine. So when looking at the current situation, we see that you're currently the provider of full protective suite comprised of 4 key products. You originally started off with protective ballistic eyewear. However, now you've transitioned to fully integrated compact protective head subsystem through the main 4 product lines, including optics, armor, power electronics, and integrated systems. So we're here today to see how we can further develop on this full suite of products. The second point is that you have configuration of the digital headset through a recent development of your mobile application. And we see this as a great opportunity to further potential data transfers, and we'll explore this idea a little bit further in our presentation. And the final point is that all systems must be sustainable, including pathways for future upgrades. And that's a key element to your product offerings and what we've kept in mind when developing a recommendation. So the question before us today is, how can Revision reach its goal to be recognized as the #1 global military leader in innovative, high performance, and integrated soldier protection systems while adapting to the changing technological landscape? So for executive summary, by implementing the Revision MyHD strategy, Revision will be able to generate a 2 to 5% profit increase over the course of the next 5 years. Now, if we delve a little bit deeper into the situational analysis, we see that the current analog HID limits data transfer, and end user devices are unable to be controlled by the current HID. So this is one of the key problem points we've discovered we would like to address. As well, some soldiers have a dislike for the orientation as well as the current size and cables and controls of the HID device. Current buttons have no advanced, and furthermore, current buttons have no advanced controlling options. And finally, the third point to highlight is that there needs to be an incorporation of the needs of a future battlefield. So controlling robots or radios or sensors and other technologies. So as society continues to advance, your soldiers are dealing with a different kind of battlefield. And so we need to adapt to this. So now I'm going to pass it back to Jasmine, who will take us through our alternatives.
Thank you, Karen. So we considered 3 main alternatives for a recommendation. To start off with, we looked at the click wheel HID, which would be upgradable with software updates, and it's also adaptable to new and emerging technologies. Secondly, we looked at narrower cables, so they would be more comfortable and simple, and they would also reduce the bulkiness of the HID for more ergonomical purposes. And lastly, we would basically upgrade the existing HID. So we would add buttons to increase the type of controls, as well as have more efficiency and operational improvements. So let's move on to the decision matrix that we looked at in order for our criteria and to decide which recommendation we wanted to pursue. So we looked at 4 main criteria in the decision matrix. We looked at adaptive and upgradable, protective and enhancing, comfortable and simple, and also the most feasible. So when we look at adaptive and upgradable, we've looked at click wheel HID, which would be the most adaptive and upgradable with software updates to increase the types of controls when the new controls, let's say, are created. When we look at narrower cables and upgrade existing, we thought that it was a little more hard to adapt and upgrade because there was not a consistent software that is linked to your phone as well as the software itself. Further, moving on to protective and enhancing, the click wheel HID was also the one that we pursued the most with, because we did think that it was the one that would help us protect not only the data, as much, but just in general enhance the whole overall user experience compared to the narrow cable and upgrade the existing as well. Thirdly, we looked at comfort and simple. We thought that the narrower cables would just be comfortable and simple because it's what we are already, the personnel is already used to, but the click wheel HID would be something a little more new to adapt to. And lastly, feasibility. We thought that the narrower cables, as upgrading the existing ones, are the ones that are the most feasible because they already exist, but the click wheel HID would be a little bit more harder to create because it hasn't been created yet, but we did think that overall that was the recommendation we would pursue. So therefore, we are pleased to present to you our Revision MyHID strategy, and now Karen will pass it on to explain more about it to you.
So before we delve into the depth of our recommendation, we wanted to highlight that there are 3 key divisions in the US military, and specifically why we have chosen to focus on the Special Forces operators. So when looking in terms of budget, we see that this new recommendation may have additional incurred costs. And so looking at that, the Special Forces operators have the highest budget. And furthermore, they're looking to employ cutting edge technology, which we see that this recommendation really does provide. And this is something that they need compared to specialists or regular forces who may not be as in much of a need for this new and innovative technology. And so finally, the final point is that we believe that there's a greatest market opportunity here based on the needs and the activities of this division. So we're going to take you through a little bit of what the target consumer looks like. So we have Special Forces operator here, Thomas Egan, or commonly referred to by his unit mates as Tommy. He's currently 21 years old and he's from Vail, Colorado. In terms of training, he typically pursues unconventional tactics, techniques, and procedures. So he's really used to taking on new technologies that might not be what he's originally used to. And so this is something important to keep in mind as we delve deeper into a recommendation. And finally, his recent mission, he was part of the 10th Special Forces Group, and he was recently deployed in Iraq, where he actually had to use drones, and we'll see how this applies to the recommendation. Now I'm going to pass it on to Marley.
So for our recommendation, we have some key features. The customizable buttons are really important because something that the soldiers were struggling with before is that they only had 3 push-to-talk buttons and 1 volume control button. But we want to solve this problem by making a click wheel where the soldiers can choose what their buttons are going to do. And this gives them more flexibility, and also we can put a chip in the HID so that when there's software updates and we implement more controls, the soldiers have access to these controls and then they can customize their buttons so that they have this control. And Kira will continue talking about the scroll buttons a bit later. So for the voice command, we wanted to move past just radio communication. Since radio communication needs the soldier to be listening in at that time in order to get the message, we wanted to use voice memos to communicate so that a soldier can respond to a voice memo they get from their partner, for example, and they can listen to the voice memo at their earliest convenience and then respond to the voice memo with their own voice memo. And this will also, we'll talk a bit more about this later. And how we're actually going to do that with the signal between the phone and the HID will be with Bluetooth. Since before, the cable only allowed one-way data transmission from the HID to the phone, from the phone to the HID, but we also want to have data transmission from the HID to the phone so that we can control the phone. And there will be cellular and non-cellular options.
Now moving on to a little bit more in depth of our recommendation. So we do recognize that having a cellular device may be difficult in some regions, which is why we have chosen to have both functionalities. I'll first begin by talking about the common features, which will be communication through voice recording, as said by Marley, as well as buttons and click wheels with customizable modes and cables that will replace the Bluetooth in the case that Bluetooth fails. And now if you look to your left for our cellular option for regions with cellular capabilities, we will have an added camera on the existing spectacles through which you'll be able to take images and will then be able to send them through message and cellular signal to your commanding officer. If you look to the right, you'll see our non-cellular options. So if you're in a region where there is no cellular infrastructure, such as Tommy might experience in Iraq, messages can be sent through radio signal, but are still available, which is very important. Now to look a little bit at our design features. So as you can see, our design repurposes the existing design with buttons suitable for the needs of our users, such as Tommy. We will repurpose the buttons suitable for gloving and tactile feedback and hold the same shape as the old design, as this optimizes the hand grip. By selecting the voice talk button,
in the left corner, you will see that Tommy will be able to communicate with his commander either by radio or by cellular signal. When he wishes to, when data needs to be transferred between the HID and cell phone, he will be able to do so using the Bluetooth connection. If this fails, he still has the option to revert to cables as in the original device. You can see that we will also have a clip in the rear for attachment to the uniform, which is important as this device is carried with Tommy as he goes on his missions. We will also have a scrolling volume button, which will allow you to enhance outdoor sounds as well as limit outdoor sounds according to what is best for Tommy. Now looking a little bit to the left, we will have a button for mode selection. So let's say Tommy is in a situation where he believes that there might be some nearby explosions and he needs to be able to detect vibrations outside. He will be able to select the appropriate mode for this kind of situation. And then further, he will be able to use the click wheel, the image seen on the left, to choose different options within this mode, which will allow him to be most successful and keep him safe in this dangerous situation. And now to discuss a little bit of the durability and specs of our device. So as mentioned before, Tommy might be in a situation where he is in a nearby explosion, or even he could be in a very warm environment. And due to this, the device needs to be able to withstand such environments. And in order to ensure this, our device uses materials that pass appropriate testing. So first of all, to talk about the exterior material, it'll be made of silicone rubber, which is temperature, UV, and mold resistant, as well as is sealable, which will keep all the electronics sealed and not exposed to the outdoor environment. Next, there will be energy resistant coating, which will protect the device against large vibrations, which could come in the case of explosions or large amounts of force. And lastly, a protective coating, which will add to the already strong silicone rubber and will resist environmental hazards such as temperature, solar radiation, sand, and dust. I will now pass it on to Karen to discuss the marketing strategy.
Moving right along, so we see this as a B2G, a business to government marketing campaign, and we propose two main components. The first is a redesign of a responsive landing page, which is essential in these types of B2G campaigns. So we would recommend you update the website content to feature the new offerings, as well as reposition to focus on the innovative HID technology rather than your current only focus on ballistic eyewear. The second would be to create a promotional video, and it showcases key features of the product in action, as well as virtually tour the facilities where you build these products in order to increase transparency. And so with these two components, we believe that you'll be able to secure government military contracts. Now I'm going to pass it on to Marley for a breakdown of our costs.
So the increase in cost that we would see is licensing the Bluetooth, the research and development for the software, the marketing, and we would also have to get a computer chip, one per HID. And then we calculated the total fixed cost at the bottom. And then moving on to the next slide, we calculated the price that we're charging, which is $1,087 per HID. Revenue would be $18.7 million, and the units sold would be $17,200. We can go over those numbers in the Q&A. So here's some benefits and drawbacks. There are high development costs, and they're customizable, but there's a potential learning curve.
Moving on to the implementation, we think on a short term, we would develop the software which would be compatible with the phones and the click wheel, and that we would also create a Bluetooth compatible with the HID. On a medium term, we would have cooperation with military and non-military institutions, and we would also go through a certification process as well as a development process in a more advanced form. And lastly, on a long term, we would end user feedback loop of basically the consumers themselves to kind of understand the effective design and start selling our product and then make the necessary adjustments. So we hope that you took away 3 main points from our presentation today. Our recommendation will facilitate communication between personnel, will be compatible in different environments, and increase profits by 2 to 5%. Thank you, and now we open the floor to questions.
I have a question. So can we go back to your implementation slide? Perfect. What are the investments required for each of these stages? And then what would be the volume required for you to have a positive payback on that investment? I think, as you said, you would like to go over the numbers in Q&A. So please do.
Okay, well, I could talk a bit about your question about the costs for each stage. So when we were calculating the increase in cost, we found that licensing the Bluetooth would be $8,000 to $10,000. So creating the Bluetooth would be in the short term, and that would definitely be a cost incurred in the short term. Developing the software would also be in the short term, and that cost is $200,000 to $300,000. And then we'll have to market it as well. And the marketing will be $20,000 to $25,000. So we'll have to do that before we get it out to market. The computer chip per HID would be a cost incurred in the long term because that's when we'll actually be selling it. And then consistent R&D will also occur in the long term since we're always going to be improving this design. We're always going to be making necessary adjustments. So the R&D will be a cost that won't just happen in the short term, but will continuously be incurred.
Okay. As a follow-up question to that, and then I'll be done. So basically, the costs to deploy this are under $500,000, roughly, right? From an investment perspective, with such low cost to entry, why do you think that your competitors have not explored this option? What about your design and your solution will protect competitors from quickly catching up to you, duplicate, basically copycats, and then jeopardizing your market position?
Oh, I can go for it. So I think that the first thing would be basically like the first mover advantage. So I think that the fact that it's kind of like any company, when we're the first mover, you kind of have a recognition around it and you're kind of known for that. So I think that if we start by doing it first, yes, we can't stop our competitors from copycatting like you're saying, but the fact that we're the first ones, there's going to be a kind of recognition around that. And also I think that the fact that we're going to be ahead of the game, that we're going to be testing it, and once our idea when we're talking about Karen we didn't get the chance to go much in depth in it, but like the B2G, so to the government, we planned on already initially potentially going to, let's say, 3 first governments. So we were thinking of the UK, the US, and then Canadian. And then we would offer them a period where they could rent out these headsets and the HIDs so that they could test how they like them. And once they like them or they don't regarding whatever, and the feedback they have for us, we would make the adjustments necessary for them to be able to buy them to their convenience and how they like it. And I think that the main part of the HID, it's very customizable. So it's very unique to anybody's and they can make it to whatever it pleases them. So I just think that the biggest advantage that we would have is first mover. And once that we have the software already developed, we just have to make changes as it goes to make it more and more convenient and efficient, and just to make it kind of irreplaceable in a sense that we can only offer it. I hope that answers your question. I can try to go more.
It does. I have follow-up questions, but I'd like to open the floor to the other judges, especially so that they can ask about the design, which is.
So in terms of your product itself, if I understand correctly, you're proposing to use the cellular network to send messages. So can you talk a little bit about that in the sense of operational security, not only the messages, but triangulation, and how does that fit in with a special forces team going into enemy territory with having cellular networks there, or even a cellular chip in it?
Definitely. So actually, we did consider that greatly, and we thought about it, and we were thinking that initially we would use it and on things, I guess, obviously that, there are privacy concerns that come with all this data that is quite important. So I think that the main thing was we were potentially considering how we would kind of put it on a blockchain, not necessarily in a cloud, but just have like a blockchain encryption and make sure that all the data is encrypted so that there would be no necessity of having issues that are coming up with problems of, like measurement of information that is compromised or hackers, everything. We didn't have the details put out on the presentation itself, but we did consider the issue of privacy concerns. So blockchain was the method that we were thinking of, but we did think that we would more look at it in development process in like the medium to long term.
So just to understand correctly, you're proposing to use a traditional cellular network, but to use blockchain to ensure security of data? Is that correct?
Well, I think it's more in the sense that we would start it off on a cellular basis, because that's what we meant by on a short term, that we would start by looking at it with cellular and non-cellular, and then get a sense of how exactly our initial idea works. And then from there, make the adjustment. So that's what we have initially proposed right now. But that doesn't necessarily mean that what we thought of is necessarily going to work in reality. But this was more on a furthermore of kind of blockchain may not necessarily work with cellular like you're saying, but just that was a method that we thought of to protect the data in the long run. But we do understand that, like you're saying, the cellular itself cannot necessarily be protected. So that's why we wanted to have an initial phase of just testing and understanding what methods are working, what methods don't work, and then make those adjustments to make sure that our product is basically as safe and efficient and just the best product that we can offer.
Okay, I have a couple more questions, but I'll let other people kind of
no problem.
ask some more.
Sorry, I'll jump here. For the cell one, for the cell, like blockchain and cell, usually in military combat, they use ad hoc. They have ad hoc networks. So, and they have their own encryption, they have their own network, and they communicate within the ad hoc. They don't communicate through any common network. So this is, you have to keep in mind, like, I'm not sure what are your backgrounds, so I'm not assuming that you all have the idea of the ad hoc network, but in a military combat, usually they use they have their own network. They have their own network, they build like very high secure network and they use it. They don't use the regular cell network. They don't depend on the cell network. This is one point. I just want to know for the design, if we go, I think it was the recommendation. Yes. And you said the first button, it's for mood selection. So if I'm a soldier, I'm clicking on the button, how I will know which mood I am in right now? So I will click and which mood I'm talking, I'm sending memo, what I'm doing. So how I will know this?
So I can speak a bit to that. So for the modes, since your device is connected to your headset, it will be saying in your headset what modes you are clicking through. And in addition, you have, as it is a customizable device, you've pre-programmed which modes you want to be able to select. Does that clarify a little bit?
Okay, so this is for selection of the mode. Then you have the dial. And for what, like I will use the dial to do what?
So the dial can be for selecting different features within a mode. So as we mentioned in the presentation, for example, you can hear vibrations, let's say, around you, and you'll be able to, enhance the mode, the way to which you listen to the vibrations, whether it to be at a greater extent or a lower extent. And I guess that's one example for one way in which we would use the dial. However, there are other options. And once again, you will hear it through the headset when you're making these changes.
Okay, and if we go to the Bluetooth, so you said it's buying the Bluetooth, will like the certificate or the license for the Bluetooth will cost $8,000. Then you will create your own Bluetooth. What you meant by creating your own Bluetooth?
Is it this on the implementation slide, I think?
Yeah, I think it was.
I think maybe the wording was wrong, but it's more in the sense that the software that currently exists, or like the application that currently exists, the case was talking about how there was a difficulty with data transfer between the software and the HID and the app itself. So it wasn't more necessarily about creating your own Bluetooth. It was more making the Bluetooth and the phone customizable with the HID, the RHID. I don't know if that makes it more.
Okay, yeah, this makes more sense.
Sorry, maybe the word was incorrect and it induced it.
Yeah, this is more like makes more sense. Like,
yeah.
Make it like the device compatible with.
Yeah. I think the word should have been compatibility. We're sorry
because like the word create Bluetooth was just a bit. So I'll stop here. Maybe someone else will take the questions.
Yeah, I had a very simple question, actually, a super layman question. First of all, thank you so much for that presentation. So at the moment, how is it, they're not able to transfer the data? I understand that. With your recommendation, are you suggesting they carry the cell phone with them along with this particular device? Or are you just making it compatible for the data to be transferred as and when the HID and the cell phone can come into contact?
I can take this question. I think it's exactly what you said on the second point, where, if there is an instance where they do want to transfer the data from the cell phone to the HID or vice versa, when the cell phone is within proximity to the HID device, they're able to transfer that data. So it's not necessarily that on the battle scene or on the battlefield they have to carry their cell phone with them, but in the instance where they do want to perform that level of data transfer, they have the capabilities to do so in both directions now.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, so you mentioned something about energy resistant coating near the end. I'm just wondering, did that factor into the cost? And yeah, so that's the first question. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, so actually what we did is the price itself is a rough estimate because we do know that the materials are going to cost quite a bit, but I think just because of the limitations of time we had, we didn't have the exact amount of material that we would need. So maybe the cost and the prices are not 100% reflective of what the real costs are going to be, but we did take into account some level of the material, but there is some material, I guess, costs that are lacking that we could not necessarily find within the 6-hour time frame. But we do know that the costs may be a little bit higher than we anticipate because of these different types of materials that we will be required in order to make sure that it sustains all these different environments.
Okay, could you just please go to the benefits and drawbacks slide that you had?
Just to say something.
Okay.
There's actually a typo on this slide in case it is unclear when you were reading it.
So the benefit is high development costs for new technologies, and so you're implying that you're repurposing an existing technology. Is that what the benefit is? I don't understand the first one.
Sorry, I think this is where we mentioned there was a slight typo in this slide. The benefit here is the ability for data transfer through the new Bluetooth.
Oh, okay.
Incorporated. There's just been a copy error here.
Okay.
And the drawback would be the high development costs for the new technologies involved.
Okay. And in terms of the design, so you're going to digitize it by adding a computer chip? Or is it going to be like the Bluetooth adaptation? Like what's the approach to digitize it?
So I can take this question. So similar to what Kira was kind of going into here. So there are 3 main changes. The first is this customizable click wheel where we would incorporate that computer chip you were mentioning that Marley has priced into our increased costs. And that would allow you to be able to kind of customize what kind of features you want this click wheel to do. It's kind of a multi-purpose click wheel that you can program to either control your volume or control like the drone or whatever features you might be in. And then as well, it would be the Bluetooth connection component that allows for data transfers 2 ways.
Okay, and the last one about the voice memos, right? So how is that different or better than the existing, different radio communication methods that they have through analog?
Right. Oh, Marley, do you want to take that?
I can talk about that a bit. If you want to add anything, just say About that, so we were thinking that for radio communication, there's a big like way to improve that, since when you like speak to someone on the radio, they have to listen to it right away or else they miss it and it's gone, right? And this is bad because what if a soldier is doing something and can't listen to the radio at that moment, right? Like you never know what someone
I'm really
else...
sorry to cut you off, but we'll have to move on to deliberations right now.
Oh, okay.
I understand where you're going. Thank you.
You need us to leave or?
You can stay here for now. We just need to, yeah, you should get a pop-up for breakout rooms.
Oh, perfect.
Jasmine looks depressed.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to catch my breath. My face is all red, so I've just been trying to lessen the redness.
Is everyone here? Yep. Well, thank you for that presentation. The presentation itself was good. I think one of the things that we were just questioning was when you use certain technical terms, certain technical terminologies, make sure you understand exactly what that is and how that is used. So that's one aspect. And the second one is related to the actual end user. So you did, and just as an instance, you did talk about the ergonomics and how it's used. And I think you translate that into the actual design, looking at how ergonomically good it is, so that's the other aspect, and go around with the other judges as well now.
Waiting for me?
Yep.
Okay, go Tanvi. I'll go next.
Okay. Sure, sounds good. So yeah, definitely just piggybacking onto what Raghu mentioned, really like the PowerPoint presentation. Well done on creating the story and starting off with a sales pitch, worked very well. In terms of presentation skills, I think there's some slowing down that can happen, but then there's also some increased confidence that can happen. So, take a deep breath. It's just a competition. You're not losing out on a tender here. It's fine. Always keep that in mind. I think also, and you already know this, I don't need to hammer this down, but copying error is probably not the best place for that to happen, but it's okay. It happens to the best of us. Don't worry about it. And don't beat yourself up about it as well. And yeah, I think you addressed some interesting points. So that's the main points of the feedback that I had.
So my feedback ties back a little bit to Raghu's, and it has to do with the business side of it. There was some lack of clarity in the implementation stage. I got the impression that you were trying to cover everything. We're going to get them to buy, but first we're going to get them to lease. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. So I think going forward in cases like this, one check that you can do, and it would also beef up your costs, right, is make sure that you can link the design features to your costing or implementation phase, specifically your costing, right? If you can't make that link, both from the fixed cost perspective, the investment perspective, and then the variable costs, then it should be a red flag that something's not making sense probably in your design model. And so if we apply this to your case, I think if you tried to price out or cost out what are my fixed costs and what are my variable costs, very quickly you would have gone to the point where you'd realize, well, I can't choose it because my product or my design basically has two options. So which one am I costing? I don't really know. Okay, that's not clear. I haven't finished my thought process. We need to cycle back and tighten our thoughts about the design, right? So whoever's doing the business side of things, it's not just throwing numbers on the page. It can act as a good check and an indirect storytelling methodology that you can actually, every single line on your design, you have it somewhere on your finance page and they're talking to each other. And if you can't do that, then your solution possibly needs more work. That's my big feedback.
Okay, I will take it from here. Thank you, everyone. And I have a couple of comments. The first one regarding the presentation. And again, you have to be confident in your work. When you present, never hesitate. Like as Tanvi said, I usually say to my students like this. This is your work. You know better than me. Be confident when you present. Like I felt the hesitation in your voices, which will give me a feeling that, okay, you are not confident in your design. So I don't want this. The other one is you have to mention the slide numbers. The slides your slides don't have numbers on them. Then when I'm referring to a slide, it's easy when you have a number. I will tell you go to slide 15 to 13. So this is regarding the design itself. Yes, it's nice going to the dial and the push button, but you want to make it easier on the soldier in a battlefield. So he will not press for several times to reach like you are adding more features, but you are making it harder on the soldiers to work. Like the soldier will, like, should he send a memo or he will broadcast a message or he want to send a video or what will happen right now? So he will not go clicking. So this is something you have to keep in mind when you are putting your design. Like imagine, as you said, Tony, his name was Tony, yes? He's on a battlefield and he's working there. So imagine Tony and do your work based on that, right? Yusuf?
Yeah, so like I think you started off strong and you had a good template. You demonstrated you were following the design approach, but you didn't really hit the simplicity factor in the end. So there's a lot of things that you sought out to do. I echo the previous comments. I think you tried to do a bit too much in that you didn't give yourself time. I know you're short on time and coming together with this case, but you have to give yourself time to proof and go through your content and make sure that you're, don't try to mention terms and things that if you can't back them up. So just try to keep it more tight. I think you had the right start and approach, but maybe didn't have enough time to clean it up and sort of tighten it up, put everything together. That's it for me, but thank you for the presentation.
I just have another thing just to mention. So in terms of presentation skills, try and slow your speaking down. Just slow the speed down because it does two things to you. One, it helps you think of what you're going to say next and you're not rushed. So, and you can choose your words carefully. So no matter where you're presenting, like not the case competition, but when you start working, you will be presenting, talking to people, just slow it down because it does a couple of things. It projects that you know what you're talking about, and it also gives you time to think. So just practice that because naturally when we speak, it's not a very natural thing to talk slowly. So, and you want to get as much out as possible. Sometimes less is more. So just think through that and practice it with your friends, but it's just something you need to develop. So just keep practicing and go at it. You'll get good at it.
That's solid advice that I wish someone had given me when I was doing case comps. I have one follow-up recommendation. Just the way your costing strategy can help you tie back to possibly some loose thoughts in your design. Similarly, an easier check for the person or the teammates who are working on the design, a quick slide that says the current functionalities of the product and the proposed changed ones, a compare and contrast by attribute, I guess, or type of functionality, will help you make sure that your proposed one is adding value that is proportionate to whatever you're going to price out. And it also allows the listener to clearly situate themselves and reinforces our understanding of your problem identification, right? Because your solution should tie in with whatever the gaps are that you're proposing to solve when you're saying your problem ID. So it's a quick slide that can easily tie things together, both, and be a nice transition between the design phase and the business case phase. Because whatever you're improving should probably reflect, should be reflected in your financials and in your business case. So it's a good transition slide. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, if there's no other feedback, I'm gonna ask KMJK to leave the room. And the judges, the next team will start presenting at 6:50.
Thank you. Thank you, KMJK.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Okay, I will go get a coffee, I think. Another coffee.
If you can just be back in 5 minutes, so at 6:40. All right, so you guys can start whenever, if all your team members are here. So the floor is yours, guys.
Yeah, and I'll be holding up placards at the 10-minute, 5-minute, and 1-minute mark.
We have the new greatest generation. We don't need to search a military due to the technology we have and the equipment we have outfitting our personnel. They truly are stormtroopers. This quote by Joe Wilson, a U.S. congressman, highlights the pride that the U.S. Army and military has in their technological advancements, and we are going to be leveraging that throughout our recommendation today. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rachel, and with me are my colleagues Adrian, Daniel, and Marcus, and we are representing Transio Business Consulting. During our presentation today, we will be explaining the situation at hand, going through a number of alternatives, providing a recommendation implementation, as well as conducting a financial analysis.
I'm muted, sorry. Thank you, Rachel. Our team today will be tackling the issue of user dissatisfaction with current human interface devices. We'll be introducing our solution integrating RevHub and RevHit. And ultimately, our goal is to enhance the user experience and ensure that the US military maintains its technological advantage. Specifically for our problem today, we'll be investigating how Revision can develop a new human interface device that can enhance the user experience and still meet the standards of the US military. To discuss more about the situational analysis, I'll be passing this off to Rachel.
One of the strengths that Revision has is its willingness to engage with its customers as well as industry professionals and seek their feedback. However, this feedback has revealed 3 key issues with the current technology. And this includes the headset, the orientation of the cables, and the controls, all not being optimal from a usability perspective. So we really want to address this with our recommendation. When taking a look at the 3 largest manufacturers of military PPE, we see it's Honeywell, 3M, and Gentex Corporation. Honeywell would not be competing with us in the HID market, as they do not have a push-to-talk device currently available. Although 3M and Gentex both have push-to-talk technology, they are analog, whereas our solution will be digital. So again, we'll be able to compete in this market. When taking a look at some of the strengths of Revision's technologies, we see that the products are very high quality, they provide optimal protection, as well we have a very strong team in place that's cross-functional and collaborates with the users and industry members. This will help us to overcome any weaknesses related to outdated technology and limited customizability. As a result, we'll be able to leverage some opportunities, such as using the U.S. military's investment in new technologies, which will help to combat any threats, such as the rapid rate of technological advancement. When taking a look at the market for push-to-talk technology overall, we see that it's $1 billion industry and it's rapidly growing. So it's in the best interest of Revision to redesign its HID technology. Now Adrian will be talking about the alternatives.
Thank you, Rachel. From the situational analysis, we can see that there are a variety of different solutions that can be implemented. These include having multiple HID designs for different forces or possibly having modular buttons that can adapt to different scenarios. However, both of these approaches suffer issues, where for the first one, it will be more expensive to manufacture, and for the latter, modular buttons will need to be tracked and can decrease durability. For a solution, we aim to implement a digital system. This will allow us to expand to the capabilities of the HID to control more than simply radios. A digital solution will allow data transfer and advanced controlling options with improved communications. To dive more into the solution, I'll hand this off to Daniel.
Thanks, Adrian. As military technology rapidly evolves, human interface devices must continuously accelerate their development to ensure compatibility with advanced technologies, expand functionality, increasing versatility, and promote usability. As a central point in hardware interaction, we must consider compatibility at its basis and allow for versatile usage as new military technologies arises to the world stage. Let's take a look at how HID technology currently functions and how it will transition to evolve their usage. Due to current constraints placed by analog implementations, there's a large limitation on communication methods and channels. Transitioning to digital technology will allow for flexible communication methods, networks, and will also allow for compatibility with many different modern technologies. As well, with a very rigid design, multiple iterations are needed, which increases costs exponentially. However, with a modular design philosophy, hardware and software is created to diversify the usage of a single unit. Additionally, current HID technology has low flexibility and is difficult to use. However, with key design considerations, ergonomic and highly sophisticated designs will be introduced for both comfort and functionality. We introduced RevHID, a versatile solution to a rigorous design equipped with multiple programmable buttons through the RevHub terminal, which will suit various seating. RevHID is both a reliable HID equipped with various button configurations for versatile applications. Alongside its flexible applications achieved through programmable buttons and button types, is incredibly comfortable and compact, ensuring that users can utilize it in multiple different situations with no additional hardware or accessories. Alongside RevHID, various dongles and attachments can be equipped to connect with any connection type. From push to talk to manning a UAV, RevHID is a versatile solution to an unpredictable situation. So why does it look so different from previous iterations of push to talk and HID technology? We bring inspiration from the highly ergonomic and sophisticated banana, funneling it into a design which emphasizes both functionality and versatile comfort. Onto our software component, RevHID is powered by RevHub, an intuitive interface easily navigatable to change a variety of settings. From changing button configurations for a variety of needs saved to personal accounts for easy access, no matter the HID, to manning a UAV, RevHub is a powerful tool to elevate RevHID into a versatile solution. The combination of RevHub and RevHID allows for incredible diverse usage while streamlining the usage of any one of these technologies through its intuitive and comfortable design. Let me take you through Specialist Joe Smith's product journey with RevHID and RevHub. Joe has been with the US military since graduation for 2 years and has utilized a variety of HID devices. However, he has universally witnessed a stagnant technology which struggles to accommodate to his other advanced technologies. Utilizing RevHID, Joe has been able to easily configure his settings to his personal preferences, as well use advanced technologies like UAVs through the unified portal. Joe especially appreciates the joystick, which he has been able to apply to his UAV flight and noise canceling settings. With our modular design philosophy, we create a compact HID with the versatile applications delivered through its configurable buttons and software hub. A versatile solution with diverse applications is created while ensuring comfort and usability as it's designed. I'll pass it over to Adrian for the product implementation.
Thank you, Daniel. In terms of product implementation, we'll be implementing our solution in 3 phases. The first phase consists of development, where within 2 years, we'll dive into consulting with revision on integrating RevHub and RevHID. This might include prototyping, redesigning, and ensuring that the device meets military standards and certifications. Afterwards, phase 2 will consist of distribution of our solution, and from there, we'll look into expansion of our solution to other military branches. To discuss more about the marketing strategy, I'll be passing it off to Rachel.
Thank you, Adrian. Our target market that we'll be focusing on are the Special Forces operators, specifically those within the U.S. Army. So that would include the United States Army Special Operators Command, as well as the 1st Special Forces Command. And we chose this target market for 3 specific reasons. The first being that Special Forces operators employ cutting-edge technology as they perform the widest variety of tasks out of all the other members of the Department of Defense. Additionally, this division within the U.S. military has the largest budget available to purchase military equipment, which we think will be very beneficial when giving them the opportunity to invest in new technologies. Additionally, the U.S. Army has the highest number of Special Forces operators for a total of 43,000 personnel. So as a result, we see that there is high demand within this target market.
When taking a look at our pricing, our product will sell for $791. We see that this is higher than some of our competitors. However, the reason for this is due to sophisticated technology, which provides a number of competitive advantages that Adrian will now highlight.
Regarding the competitive advantage of RevHid, we need to highlight that because of the software integration, as Daniel said, this will allow our solution to adapt to different clients and different applications. In addition, our HID design is ergonomic and allows a compact design with condensed functionality. Both the hardware and software implementation allows a future-proof solution that is user-friendly and comfortable to use.
When marketing or selling a product to the military, there's a number of special considerations to keep in mind. Therefore, for the first phase, we'll enlist the support of the Defense Logistics Agency. We will do this by seeking guidance from the Procurement Technical Assistance Center about how to execute contracts with the Department of Defense. Next, to ensure that we're complying with the Federal Acquisition Regulation, we'll ensure that we're registered with the Beta System for Award Management. Lastly, since our contract has value of over $150,000, we'll need to go through the competitive contracting procedure, which entails developing a one-page capabilities statement outlining the competitive advantages. Now Marcus will explain our financials.
Thank you, Rachel. So now diving into our financials, the first thing that we want to look at is our revenue model. So we're expecting that the initial manufacturing cost for Eurasian military is going to be of around 1.7 million US dollars during the first year, and then afterwards it's going to be competitive with the inflation rate. And then, as we mentioned, our lower pricing of 791 places us really competitive in the market, as we also include like some of the better features in the device. And obviously the target market that we're expecting is the U.S. Special Forces operators. So some assumptions that we use for our financial forecast include that the average inflation rate of 2%. We're also expecting that the initial targeted U.S. military personnel that is going to use the devices is going to be of around 65,000 units. We're also expecting a compound annual growth rate of 5%, and we're accounting for the risk of a revision with a real rate of 30%, as it is not as well established as Honeywell or 3M. So in terms of the financial forecast, Revision Military can expect a 10% return on investment with an expected net present value of 46 million US dollars, making it a really good investment in the project. Revision Military can expect overall an average growth in sales revenue of 15% and a steady growth in gross profit of 9% overall. So now I'll pass it back to Adrian for the risk and mitigations.
Thank you, Marcus. Of course, let's not forget about the risks associated with our proposed solution. These risks include complicating the HID, which slows adoption, and our price is higher than some of our competitors, as Rachel mentioned. To mitigate these risks, our solution will be user-friendly and is currently priced comparatively, as Marcus said, while adding more features. The implementation of RevHub will ensure quick upgrades and a smooth transition. Today, our team tackled the issue of user dissatisfaction with human interface devices. Our solution, RevHub and RevHid, will ultimately enhance the user experience and ensure that the U.S. military maintains its technological advantage. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation.
Thanks. Go ahead, Jim.
Sorry?
Go ahead. I was just going to start asking.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I have my question about the financials. In your current financial model, what is your assumed margin for the proposed product, and how does it compare to the existing product's margin?
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of the financials, our business model, we're expecting that the manufacturing cost per unit is going to be of approximately $26, and then the retail manufacturing cost would be upscale just to compensate for any R&D and technology that we're implementing. And in addition to that, other things that we are comparing is the sensitivity analysis. So our break-even point here, which is a margin for us to at least cover some of the costs of the manufacturing, we're expecting to sell at least 2,210 units to cover that manufacturing cost, and that would be our minimum margin in terms of that part of the financials. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, can you just go back? So what is the margin?
The margin of is 2,210 units to cover the manufacturing cost.
No, the margin. So what is your margin cost or margin percentage?
Oh, the margin percentage or margin cost?
Well, not
the
margin cost. What is your margin in dollars, and what is your percent margin?
Our margin cost is, so the total manufacturing cost is 1.7 million, and the pricing that we're using is around like the $800 per unit.
Okay, so the incremental cost, right, of producing a unit is under $30. Can you break that down for me? How do we get one of these high-end products to cost $30 to make?
Okay, so in terms of the manufacturing cost per unit, we are including the electronic design, the testing and the certifications. We're also including the prototyping and also the implementation of the software, plus any enclosures to encompass all the body of the device. And that also includes like redesign manufacturing. So in those terms, if we compare like the number of units that we're actually utilizing or actually expecting to manufacture, we can expect that the manufacturing cost per unit in terms of like the base price is going to be of $26 approximately, and then we are upscaling that to the retail price.
Okay, last question before I open the floor. So what I'm looking at right here, it assumes what volume of sales and manufacturing?
So the volume of sales that we're assuming is of, hold on a second. We're using 65,000, which is assumed here. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you. I'm done for now.
So the actual device itself, how does it connect to the headset? I'm assuming there's a radio and the phone. I guess those three things. And is it wired?
Hi, Raghu. I'd love to answer that for you, actually. So there is a wired version of this device. So it wires all the way up to your headset, as well as there are configurations possible. So there's a dongle that attaches at the very bottom. So if you look at your bottom left, it attaches at the bottom, and that is interchangeable. So it can fit multiple different connection points, whether you want to connect it to your phone, your UAV, or a sentry gun, for example, right? So it's all about flexibility and versatility and how we can apply it to multiple different technologies fueled by our digital foundation.
And how does it connect to? So you're using this as a push to talk for traditional radios? Is that the whole pitch?
Yes. So this is a HID or like a push to talk combined with the controller, because a lot of testimonials talked about how there was low configuration and there was a low amount of buttons that allowed you to configure it to whatever you wanted, right? So we added this joystick to increase the amount of versatility that we can apply to multiple different sections, whether you want to actually use this to make the UAV fly, or you have buttons on the back, which you've configured to your own preferences on push to talk. So it's all about configuring it to whatever task that you want to accumulate it to, and then using it for that task specifically.
So does it mean everything has to be wired? There's no wireless signal here. You're talking about.
No, there is no wireless signal. We believe wireless signals do present an issue in the case of certain technologies coming out in warfare, you could say.
Then just a last question. How do you connect to the phone then?
There is a wired version. So on the bottom, that is a dongle, and you're able to connect it via a wired connection.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, so thank you so much for that presentation. I just had a couple of basic questions there. With respect to the design, so the existing HID is a semi-wearable device, right? Because you clip it onto your jacket. How does it work in case of your rev head? That's one. So how do you make it wearable? And the second one is, yes, you have a joystick on the top that also helps in controlling drones, which is great. When you're talking about other options and you move the joystick, where are you seeing these other options to be able to choose from them?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that for you, Tanvi. Okay, so let's head on over to our solution for RevHit first. So as you can see in the middle picture, it actually clips on. So it's a traditional HID. However, you have the capability to take it off your vest and use it as a hand controller as well. So it's all about the versatility and the application you can use it, right? So because of usual HIDs, if you want to use a controller like this, you'll have to take it off, put a wire connection in, and then use an external accessory, right? So this HID that we've formulated is a controller and an HID in one that allows you to use talk to push or use as a controller as well.
Okay, so the device that is connected at the bottom of the wire that's coming from the headset, that's where you're saying this gets clipped on?
Yes, yes. So yes, on the vest, it's clipped on right there.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tommy.
Okay, I just have a question. I'm just asking, like, so we are assuming that, like, you have a couple of buttons at the bottom of the device. You have the joystick up there, another 2 or 3 buttons at the top. So those, I can program them as I want. Like, I can say this one will be my push to talk. This one I will control my. If there's any like features like sending videos or taking or just simple push to talk.
Yeah, I'd love to go through that for you again as well. So let's just hop on over to RevHub. So RevHub is our mobile application that connects to RevHid. So this is the foundation to, let's say you want to configure one button to be talk to push. You just go into RevHub and you change the buttons around, right? As well, RevHub automatically detects if there's another connection on top of your mobile device, for example. Let's say on your far right, a UAV or a drone is currently connected. So when the drone is connected, it directly communicates with the device itself, detects it, and now you can go through and configure any settings you like. For example, a drone, if you want to send pictures, you can take pictures on your phone as well. And these are all things that are configurable from the RevHub terminal itself.
Okay, just a second here. So I will have 2 steps. The first step, configuring my RevHub, like the Rev HID through the RevHub through the app, and I have another step where I am in the field. While I'm in the field and I have a drone near me, how I can control this drone?
So exactly. So you just connect your mobile device to your RevHid, and then those will intermingle with each other to send a signal to your drone. So you can communicate with your drone through your RevHub device itself. And then that connects to your RevHid, which is the joystick, which you can control your drone itself.
So yeah, assuming that I will be carrying my cell phone, or so the soldier will be carrying his cell phone all the time.
Yeah. It also works without the cell phone because you can pre-program it and then you can just use your RevHid, which is a controller, to just fly your drone in itself. So the RevHub is mostly a terminal where you can change settings, but however, the RevHid is independent as well.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, just a quick question from me. So what are you doing to make the product sustainable, future focused, et cetera?
Yeah, Yusuf, I'd love to cover that for you. So we can future-proof this because it's modular and because of RevHub itself. What RevHub does is it's able to connect with RevHid, update it with any software integrations as well. Most of the iterations that come in the future will be coming from external devices per se, right? So updating RevHid to be capable to connect with other devices come from RevHub to connect with RevHid itself, to update it and make sure it's state-of-the-art in itself. And as well, I'd love to address that environmental question as well. Because RevHid is a central hub that uses a controller, as well as it can update continuously, and it's modular as well to fit many different functions, we don't need to replace it with multiple different HIDs in different circumstances, and we just need one singular unit to fit many different situations in itself.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
So if there are no questions left, the judges can move to the deliberation room.
Thanks for your presentation, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I can start it off if you'd like. So thanks for that presentation. Given the time constraints, given everything you had to do, really good job in preparing your deck. The presentation itself was good. What you prepared was succinct. It had a good flow. And personally, I think it was a good job on sticking to the device, but backing it up with why you're sticking to it. There were aspects of competitor analysis, which you did, which was very interesting. The only question here was your pricing, which I think was that was probably the one aspect which you may have spent a little less time, but everything else, I think it was good. So good job, and I'll let other people talk. June.
So I agree. As the person with the least engineering knowledge here, I will say that I found your explanations harder to follow, and it is thanks to the judges who confirmed that there was more merit than I had understood as a very, very lay person. So be aware of that, because I don't know in all competitions that would happen. So if it was just based on my understanding, a lot of it went over my head. And that ties into a theme throughout your presentation. So I agree with everything Rahu said. Content that you guys did, the content was great, but your slides were heavy, and so there was a lot of information to absorb, and I couldn't absorb all of it. And this is throughout everything, both business and the design part of it, coupled with the fact that because you guys had a lot of content, all of you spoke very quickly. It was a lot. I had trouble absorbing, which is too bad, because a lot of what you had to present had a lot of merit, right? So try lighten it a bit without ever compromising your content, because you want to make sure that your message clearly comes through. So that was my overall feedback. We really liked the breadth of your business case. That was something that we really appreciated, covered a lot of topics, and your implementation timeline was the most feasible one that we saw, and what you were taking into consideration. So that was a big win for me. Youssef?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really to add than what was already said. I really like the presentation. Was a bit heavy for me too, and I think because of the pace you took and the content that was there, for some of us it was really difficult to grasp what you were actually saying at times. And the tone as well, I think, could be spruced up a bit and made a bit more, I think one of the feedbacks in another session was you can slow it down a bit, kind of bring it down to a conversational level, but also like work on the tone of your voice so that people can actually come across what you're saying and put some more energy in what you're saying as well. But aside from that, I really like the content. I'm amazed at the amount of stuff that you guys were able to put into the deck. It was, given the time box you had, I think it was really exceptional. It's a good job.
Yeah, if I can go next, I think the competitor analysis and SWOT analysis, I'll call out those two things. Everything was great. I'll call out those two things because, those are time consuming things to research on, and also the your marketing strategy on how you would go about approaching the government agencies for putting in your idea. That takes time to get that information. So great job on finding all of that and incorporating that. I think you can see the consistent theme is it was heavy on content. So do you need to cut down on the content that you're presenting? Like, do you need to cut down on the SWOT analysis or this? No, you don't need to cut it down. You can make the slides a little less on content. And just a tip, when you have that much to talk about, just focus on your key 2 to 3 points for a particular slide. You don't need to walk through all of it, because you do have a Q&A, and your appendices slide was pretty amazing as well. So you can always answer any additional questions through your appendices like you did. During the presentation itself, focus on what are the key points you want someone to go away with. So that's just a tip for future presentations. In terms of this particular case, because there is a research methodology that the organization revision has put into their case, I think maybe something that you might want to incorporate, should you move forward into the next round, if you might want to incorporate, just check off if you're covering everything, because I don't think you focused as much on the ethics and sustainability portion in this particular presentation.
Thank you, everyone. Like, you did a great job. And yes, like as Tanvi said, you didn't cover the ethics and sustainability. Like, you didn't talk about how robust your design will be in different settings, Middle East, like deserts, somewhere. So this is very, it's one of the requirements there. Also, I have a small comment in your presentation in slide 15. If you look at slide 15, you have a figure there that was flashing through in the middle of the slide. This threw me off. Like, I was looking at the figure, then it really distracted me. Don't do it. Even though that, like, I like your presentation, I like your figures in all the slides, but this one especially, like, you can just put it there. The figure itself is nice, but flashing the figure distracts the viewer, and I wasn't listening to you. I wasn't able to listen to you. Another thing is the price that you set. It was $791.54. And I stayed the whole presentation thinking how they got this number, why it's 791.54, why it's not 792. When you put a number like this, you should back it up somehow. For me, it was like, for the presentation, I was like, okay, why it's not 792? 5.4, it's not even 791.5, but it was 5.4, so specific. So don't put figures like this either. Or if you put it to get the attention of someone, yes, because you will be asked why this number is. So maybe, yes, it was a strategy from your side to catch our eyes to the number, but I don't think so. I don't think you wanted us to ask why 5.4. Okay, right? Thank you.
Just one thing, in terms of if you have heavy slides, there's typically a presentation trick where the title of the slide is your key message. So if you do that, think about something like that, where that's your key message, and then people understand quickly what you're trying to say with all the information. So you may want to think about something like that if you're going with heavy slides like this. There are various options, but just think through some of the aspects.
And this is minor, but the color coding of pink and blue in general is a bit odd for a business case, because pink and blue, especially those pink and blues, which are middle, they're not jewel toned or very bright, easily gets associated with boys and girls, and elementary school, which is an undertone that has nothing to do with your core audience. And if that is because your slides are programmed that way, in general in business, it's rare, unless you're doing a daycare or you're doing maybe children's clothing, that's probably not what the color scheme that you want people to immediately associate. Shifting to something that's more neutral probably will have wider applications and won't have that dissonance. Right? Pink and blue soldiers, don't think so. So it's small, but kind of like the 5-4, those are the small things that sometimes hook a viewer, and it's noise that prevents them from just sinking in and listening. So.
And finally, I just want to reiterate what I think someone mentioned was figure out what the scoring criteria are on, because I can't give you more marks than I want to, I wanted to, but I can't because of the scoring criteria. So figure out what that is and cater to that. Just if you get to the next round, just be careful about that portion.
That's true. Very good. But overall, this was a very, very, very strong presentation. We were quite impressed. So good job, guys.
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah. I think we're all a little tired, but good job, for real.
Is there any other feedback for the team? Or judges, you are all good?
We're good.
All right.
Good. Thank you.
So good job to the participants. Also, judges, I want to remind you to submit your evaluations before you leave. And also there is the optional debriefing at 7:50. If you guys do not have the link, I can send it in the chat in this Zoom if you wish.